Welcome to Of Sistren. I'm Catrice, and I'm joined here today with Kaira Akita. I'm so glad she was able to join me because we've been talking for years, and I felt like the world is upside down right now, and we all need a woosah, and Kyra feels like a woosah to me, and so I couldn't think of a better person to have a conversation today about the intentional stretch. And so I invited Kyra, and I'm so glad you're here. Kyra is an actress, director, content creator, founder, creator, producer, like all the things, fashion girl, fashion girl, fashion girl.
Thank you.
And talk a little bit about yourself, like tell them a little bit about yourself.
First of all, thank you for having me. You know, anytime we do something for the first time, it always feels like this big, unknown, like scary thing. And so I just don't take for granted that you thought of me
Of course.
to be here. So I appreciate that I feel like a trusted, safe space. And I feel the same way about you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So a little bit about me. I guess I think it's important for me to start with like where I'm at today, like how I see myself. And today I am a woman who is just super excited and super grateful for the life that I have created for myself. I just am really, really grateful. I've always had a good life, never had a hard life, always had a good life. But there were a few little kinks in it that were not in sync with, I know how God designed me to like move and operate. And so it's been a journey to like figure that out.
I relate to that.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
but good life, can't complain. I grew up overseas in Germany. I lived there till I was 15. And then moved to Atlanta to go to high school, then went to college, University of Georgia. And when I came out of there, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I ended up working behind the scenes at the Alliance Theater at the Woodruff. And I was working in marketing and promotions. And I was doing a lot of stuff helping to put on the shows behind the scenes. And I kept seeing girls who were around my age actually perform like the actors. And I'm like, wait, they're getting paid because I got to see the contracts and do this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is like a real thing. And up until then, I was always an actor girly, like from the time I was like 5. So I always did talent shows and plays and pageants and all of that stuff. But I never really thought of it as an actual career. And so like I'm watching them, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try to be a professionone actress.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. I think I thought you always had been an actress, like a little actress girl.
I had always done it, but I never, that's not what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had always done it, but I always wanted to be a journalist. Writing was my first gift.
I did not know this. All the talking and that makes sense now. When I read your stuff, that makes sense. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no, writing was my first gift. But then once I started performing, not to toot my own horn, but people really gravitated towards it. And I like pleasing people. I'm like, oh, I'm good at that? Bet. This is what we're going to keep doing. So I always did it, but that was never what I thought of like, oh, I'm going to like do that as a career. Well, having that experience at the Alliance, I was like, oh, what if I really try this as a career? And really within a couple of years of making that decision, I had an acting career. So it wasn't like a hard transition or anything. I was like very, very blessed in that way. And and then acting took me to LA and I set up shop there, and then acting slowed down. And I'm like, oh, so I get to figure out what else, all of these other pieces of me. So always directing, producing, just figuring stuff out, just figuring it out. And then 2019 was a really big year for me. It was the year I turned 40. And it was also the year that this whole life that I had set up as I knew it just completely changed. And ever since then, I've just been figuring out, what does this new life look like? Like, who am I for real? What do I really, really, really want? Like, I had it good, and good is good, but I'm ready for like great, and like what is really meant to move through. Like, not just it being about Kyra, but what do you do with all of this that you have? And that's where I'm at today, where I feel like I'm just at the new edge of like being clear and understanding what the assignment is for real. Yeah. My ego's out the way. My woe is me out the way a little bit. I mean, sometimes it's
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
it's still like really because life be life, man.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just feel so grateful and so blessed and so excited to look into like, wow, what does the next 5, 10, 15 years of my life, what do I really get to create? It's through me and it is me, but it's also beyond me. That's really, really exciting.
So it's interesting that you talk about the time from 2019 to right now as being kind of a period of discovery, which is theoretically, it's like figuratively a time of stretching and a time of kind of just unwinding and rewindings as needed. And I think about how, so I saw you on screen first. I saw you in The Family That Prays first, and then I saw you in Why Did I Get Married, and I didn't know you. But then you came down, my algorithm is so good for style girls. So you came down my timeline on Instagram, and I was like, who is this in this dress? Who is this? And I remember resharing it, and I reshared it because not only was the fashion beautiful, you like exuded like the grace of whatever, like everything about you was so, the synergy was round, everything met. The dress was beautiful, but you were elegant, and it was, peace was exuding through that picture. And so whenever I think about you, and then we met after that, like conversing on social media, and then met in person.
Yeah.
And when I met you, the energy matched what I felt coming through that picture. And so whenever I think about you, I always think about this like really graceful stretching, like just like I said at the beginning, a woosah moment. And when I thought about having this conversation with you and how the world feels so urgent right now and everything feels so tense, and I want the conversations on of Sistren to be about just a space where women can just relax and replenish. And I thought about you, of course, because I thought, I don't know anybody that I've seen do more stretching in the short time that we've known each other, almost coming up on 10 years, but intentional stretching, not life having to make you stretch and make you bend, and not you being forced into contortion, but you getting up and saying, this is not working for me. And so I'm going to try something different. And so when I saw you last year, was it last summer already? Oh my
Was
God,
that
the end of last summer?
Yes.
Yeah, you were talking about you had just come back from Africa. So what was that?
Yes, I was in South Africa. That sounds so fabulous to say. I'm just letting myself hear it. I'm letting myself appreciate some of the cool stuff
Not
I've
just
done.
in South Africa, but in South Africa on retreat.
Retreat for a year. That was, you know, when there's certain times in your life you think there's like before this moment and after this moment. Taking that year retreat, which really I call it a residency. I was like, I created my own residency.
Yeah.
Being there for a year, that is a real like before that, after that moment for me. There's one thing that happens when you're just exposed, when you're just in a new place with new people, and something about being on the continent. I had never been to the continent before. And so there is something about being somewhere that's so ancient, like before time. You know what I mean? There's something about that, even though it's I was in Johannesburg, and also Cape Town for a little bit. Johannesburg is very westernized.
Yeah.
I mean, you would feel like you're in Atlanta.
It does.
Like, you know what I mean? It's very westernized. We're everywhere. There's still some remnants of apartheid, of course, because they're not too far out from apartheid. So there is still class, race things happening. But for the most part, it wasn't a big cultural shift. But I did very much get a sense just being in this different place to see something that was just so ancient. Just what kept coming up for me was the sense of like creation that just kept coming up for me. And I just kept really like being in tune with that. So I feel like there was that part of the trip that was just very special, to be able to be there and have that rest and be resourced and to be able to be there and not have to stress about anything. Then the other part of it really was the world that I had to build and what I had to decide that I was going to stop doing in order to make South Africa happen. That really, in some ways, that's an even bigger takeaway, because it's given me a blueprint. Once you've done something and it's in your bones and in your body, you know you can do it again. You know it's possible.
All you have to do is do it once.
All you got to do is do it once, you know, and that decision for me to go there, to be very transparent. I mean, I love a good, fabulous year retreat residency just like anyone else, but I think it's also important. Sometimes people don't understand the mechanisms of how are you able to do that? I haven't worked a traditional job since I started working in the entertainment industry. So I've always either had gigs for acting or gigs for producing or just gig economy, and that's what people don't realize. Even if you see someone and maybe they're familiar because you've seen them on TV, at the end of the day, most of it's a gig economy, your job to job.
Yeah.
So I haven't worked a regular steady job since 2006.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so by the time I made the decision to go to South Africa last year, so much of that was me realizing how tired I was from trying to piece together this creative career path, this freelance, this gig to gig, just so that I could have the basics to do what I needed to do. And I didn't realize how much I had been going, trying to figure that out for so long. And like I said, 2019 was a big year for me. I turned 40, but I also got divorced. And that's a huge, me and my partner, we were together almost 20 years. So it was a huge life change. And I'm like, oh, girl, how do I take care of myself? I'm not in partnership. You know what I mean? And I found myself, I was trying to just make it work. And I hit a wall, Catrice. Like, I just got really tired. And I said, how are you going to get to the other side? All of these ideas and creations that I feel want to move through me. I feel like my territory is so specific and I'm not getting any younger and I'm ready to do and create what I'm supposed to do. I'm like, how am I going to get there if I'm just focusing on just surviving?
Yeah.
And so I moved a lot of things around and made some really big decisions to be able to do that. And so much of it came from support from people around me, asking for support. So this residency that I put together, I asked for people around me close to me, will you underwrite this for me?
Yeah, that's real.
Will you underwrite this for me? I'm looking at this as a research year. I need a hallway. I felt like I was in the environment that I created for myself after my divorce. I'd finally gotten comfortable where at least I'm like, I know what this is. But I know that's not it. God was telling me this is supposed to be a hallway. You're just trying to stay here and hunker down. But I needed a change in environment and perspective to be able to get through the hallway.
That's a whole word. You are trying to make a place to stay in a sheltering space. And a sheltering space is not meant for permanent residents.
Not meant for permanent. I love that you say sheltering because I love the environment that I've created for myself. Like, I love it so much to the point where I felt myself almost in complete hibernation mode.
Isn't it so interesting how we love pass-through spaces? Like, we will get so comfortable in a space that we're supposed to just be passing through.
Yes.
What is that?
Yes. Because it feels good. And I'm actually I've learned about myself. I'm a very slow kind of introvert. I love 80% of my time I spend alone and I enjoy myself. I really do. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's very easy to just suck me in my, I'll just be in my little bubble. But so just making that decision, will you help me? Will you help me underwrite this? I feel like on the other side of this, I will have the clarity where I can really start moving forward. And I'm not my main project because I felt like Kaira as the person, I've been the main creative project. I'm like, okay, girl. You can only do so much at this point. I feel like so much more needs to come out. And I was like, I just need a breather and I need a different perspective, so having that support, having the support from Kim Williams, my friend and colleague who had moved to South Africa and bought property there. I was the first tenant there, so her extending me, grace and having a great deal on it, so it's also community was helping me do that. It was also me making the decision to say, this is what I want to do. And I will say something that I haven't been sure of whether or not I wanted to share, but I was like, yeah, I do want to share. Another big part of it, when you're just talking about sheltering places or something supposed to be passing through, there was so much I was hanging on to that was still left over from being in partnership with someone financially. And all those bills and all that stuff, and me just having that transition, I was tired of keeping that up. I was like, I can't do it. And I gave myself permission to say, you know what? I'm going to let this go and start fresh. And I filed bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I don't think people talk about that in a way that it's just a strategy. It has nothing to do with my character.
That's right.
It has nothing to do.
And it's a strategy that a lot of people employ. Not us, but a lot of people employ.
A lot of people employ. It's a strategy. And it took me a while to get there because I want to feel like I can figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. Like, I should be able to figure this out. I should figure it out and make it work. But I was listening to my body, not being so hard on myself and being like, I don't want to have to figure it out that hard. I want more ease. You know what? I want to let that go and I want to start fresh. And that's what I do.
I hope this is an element of your new work, is to help people think about how to structure getting out and moving into something new, because we were talking about that earlier, how sometimes people say just start over. If you don't know how to start over, if you don't know the process, and sometimes people just need to hear you talk about what your process was. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they need you to walk them through conceptualizing a process because they don't know what all is available to them. Sometimes they don't have the community, or they don't think they have community, but they just aren't tapping into their community, because we have a lot of entrepreneurship, of course, in our community, especially Black women, and we often think of our community as just our friends in our circle supporting our business. Sometimes we need a true investment. Like, you have people who invested into you so that you could have this time to, like you say, go into, decide what's going to be next.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important. That's definitely part of my work. I'm very much into the process and operating systems of things. Mm-hmm. I am, by nature, I do see everything through story. So it's like, once you have chosen a certain story, that affects what you're building around it. And I think that's the hardest part before you can even get into the operating system of how do I make this happen. You have to allow yourself to switch the story that you're telling yourself about whatever something means. Because technically, so I could say, okay, I'm a 40-something-year-old woman who is divorced, who is looking for a different access point in her career, who just filed bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. You could tell yourself the story that, girl, you are failing at life. What are you doing? You should have it together. You should be an adult. You should be doing these things. Mm-hmm. But because I had already spent so much time working on the stories I was telling myself, by the time I got ready to really make that change, I was able to really tap in and tell a more elevated story around it, because I know I am a founder creator. I know I am meant to lead in a certain way. I get to be the guinea pig. I'm around creatives all the time. And there's so many times that creatives can't even focus on the scope, the real scale of their vision coming through, because they're worried about just getting by on the day-to-day or the month-to-month. So I want to be able to invest in other creators the way I was invested in, have a residency, go off to a year, go off for a year in South Africa and do that. So once I switch it, I'm like, oh, you get to be the case study. You better elevate how you're seeing this. You ain't a bum. You know what I mean? Right? You're not a bum. And so once I was so clear about that story, to be honest, that made it easier to start asking. And then you will find people around you who are able to be a part of that. They're so excited to support that elevated narrative. Yeah. It makes them rise up also.
It can be a case study too. I didn't even think about that, because when I left Ohio to move to Georgia, I was thinking, I sat there and I thought about my life at the time. I'm single. I don't have children. I am unattached. This is the best time for me to launch. I was 31 and I thought, if I'm going to go, I better go now. And so my aunt, like you said, your friend was in South Carolina, in South Africa. My aunt here, who lived here in Atlanta, my mom's youngest sister, she said, you can come and live with me and you can just get your bearings. And so I had a temporary job working at the airport, but every single day, I even negotiated with my boss at at the airport to let me work the earliest shift, like 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., so I could race out in the afternoons and go into magazines and leave my resume, try to get an interview, like walk into an interview. And I walked into an interview one day at a magazine, and that's how I ended up getting my job at Atlanta Tribune. I didn't get the job immediately, but they remembered me when a job became available. And I didn't even think about that at the time, though, but I took the time to plan out what is this going to look like for me to launch. Because that's what I called it at the time. I'm launching because I wanted to become a magazine editor. And I was like, this is the time for me to go right now. Same with you. So on your site, you talk about our creation power. And I wanted to know, how do you shift from a state of reactive living to shaping your reality from an internal place of alignment? How did you do that?
That's a big question.
Because you talked a little bit about it earlier when you said, you know, you had to pull yourself out of thinking of yourself in a partner state, especially financially, to, I'm going to have to build this from the inside out.
Yeah. I think, number one, I've always had an inclination. I'm a very what's the word I'm looking for? I'm an introspective person. So I'm always thinking, I always felt from the beginning when I first started pursuing acting or anything I was doing, I was like, if I just focus on me and getting really good at being me, everything else will take care of itself. I've always felt that way. And I really feel overall, if we're talking about creation power, I think unfortunately we're dropped in a system, the way society and culture is. It's designed to try to make it so that we consume more than we create. And we're, as human beings, as spiritual beings, as creative beings, we're not designed to just consume. And I think that I had a really good example early on what it looks like. Everything is made up. You can build whatever world you want for better or worse, as we're seeing now. And I think every decision I made along the way, once I saw a spark, seeing other young women performing, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do that. I just started doing the steps to build the world. But because I had this naturally like ingrained belief that I am meant, that I can create those things. I think it's harder if you've maybe had more trauma or had more of trouble and you're like where you're having another barrier because you're dealing with such a level of trauma or such a level of hurt that you can't even get to the proximity of just that basic understanding of like your creative essence. And so I'm actually very aware that I have a lot of privilege around that. But honestly, that makes me want to make sure that I'm tapped to my creation power even more, because not everyone has the space and the luxury and the mindset and the life circumstance to even be able to breathe and be like, okay, I can build this out differently. I can see this differently. Not everyone has that environment or that capacity. So I see it as a real responsibility, and I want to make use of it in the time that I'm here. And to your point, when you're saying, you know, you're unattached. So I'm single, no kids. Some people, for me, particularly women, we're meant for just ideas to move through us, that there's so much space. And when I see other girlfriends who are mothers, who are married, there's not the same kind of space because so much of their creative energy is in another human being, which we need that. But then we need other people who your creative energy can go in other ways. So I really take that as an honor and a privilege. And as long as I can keep my ego in check and not make it about creation, not in the sense of how talented I am or how gifted I am, because I also grew up in talented and gifted program. I was a high achiever, academics, whatever. So you can kind of be taught that you're special because you're talented and gifted. But that kind of really has nothing to do with it. And then after a while, I'm like, girl, the talented and gifted part don't even matter that much. Do you have the capacity? Do you have the emotional intelligence? Do you have the resilience? Do you know how to lead people? Do you know how to lead yourself? Do you have empathy? Like all of those things matter more. And then the talent, the gift is just the icing on the cake that you just throw.
It's like being it's like being a doula when you have been through it yourself. Because one thing about what you just said that stands out to me is sometimes people, they don't know how to tap in, and you can see it from where you're sitting looking at them. I can see this potential. I can see these assets that need to be pulled out.
Yes.
But it is a luxury to spend time studying yourself. And people think that that's being narcissistic. No, like the greatest work you can do is to really dig into yourself so that you know what your strengths are, but also where the voids are, where the trauma is. And it takes a long time. Every time I think I'm at my bottom line, there's another bottom line. So I resonate with what you're saying about my life was good growing up.
Yes.
But now that I'm grown and I'm digging into myself, there was a lot of trauma points.
Same.
And every single time I pull a root out, I think I've gotten to the root.
Yes.
And I'll be going on my merry way and something else will rise up and I'm like, don't tell me there's another weed in here. Yes, there is another weed that has roots that are deep.
Yes.
But I am so happy to be getting those because every time something comes up, I am a better version of myself. I'm more reconciled, and I'm at this point because for years I would have never been sitting here talking to you, using my voice, never mind on camera. I would have not even been talking out loud. Like for years I've been just a writer. Not saying just a writer because writers are the best.
Yes.
But I've been hiding behind my words on paper and thinking that was all that I had to offer. So I appreciate you. But one area that I feel like is brimming when I go through your new project website is that you always seem like you're protecting what's sacred. And even though you don't say that, it comes through in the way that you talk about storytelling. And I am very interested right now in talking to women or engaging with women around the idea of us rejecting hustle culture and the demand that's on us to rise up to the level, especially knowing how many Black women have been displaced from the labor market. And we feel that pressure. We feel it from our peers, but we feel it ourselves. Like even me, like in my day-to-day work, I am constantly trying to offload the tension that the world is. I'm trying not to bury that tension within myself because I've been walking around like my lower back has been hurting. Why is my lower back hurting? I haven't been working out like I should. So it's not from
You're like, it's not that.
It's not from that. But I know that's stress. And I learned from the doctor that Black women particularly tend to hold stress in our hips. So I do these full body stretches, like it's a 13-minute program with a YouTube video like 3 times a week to stretch my hips out because I would get up out of the bed in the morning and my right hip would be hurting. And I was like, oh my God, am I having hip issues? And the doctor was like, no, it's just tension. You just need to stretch. You need to stretch out your muscles and your tendons.
Yeah,
intentional stretch. Intentional stretch. Intentional stretch. So how do you take care? Like, what is your manner of self-care? Is it evolving?
It's evolved. I have a love-hate relationship with the term self-care.
Yes.
Because I think it has been so commodified.
Yeah.
And they're trying to sell us back to us and saying this is going to make you feel
That's
better.
Why I want to just say, how do you take care of yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you balancing yourself out?
I do everything at what they call like not even a half pace, probably at a quarter pace. My life and movement is so slow. I can't even overemphasize how slow.
That's intentional.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very intentional. And it's really only because once again, like you, I said, I had a good life before this new life I've created, but I did not realize how much I was operating in a way I was not designed to operate. There was so much movement and energy and doing and me being useful in all these different ways. I did not realize how dysregulated my nervous system was. I didn't realize how unwell I was emotionally.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how tired I was. Because if you're in a certain environment, it's like if you're a fish in water, the fish doesn't know they're in water because the fish is always in water. So you don't know anything different. And once I made the decision that I have to wait, let me put it this way. The biggest self-care thing I did is once I made the decision that with all of this stuff of how I'm feeling, like all this stuff is just, it's just this tension, everything is pushing up against something. Once I made the decision that the problem wasn't that I needed to fix myself, that I needed to figure out how to balance all this or to make it work. Once I made the decision that it wasn't me, it was the environment, that was the biggest self-care decision that just started me into a new way of deciding how do I want to build my days and my life. And when I did that and removed myself from those environments, I had to then teach myself, because I've only known how to be in one environment.
Yeah.
So even when everything was clear and it was just me, I found myself still being harmful to myself. And I can't blame that on a relationship. I can't blame that on the dynamic. I'm like, girl, this is just you being so hard on you.
Internalized oppression.
It's so internalized.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, it's just a very slow process, you know. So I just learned to be in community. I learned to be in deep artist community. I have artistic mentors, Christina Dunbar, Ebony Janice.
Yeah.
Like I have different women whose programs and just presence I've been in that just, you have to learn how to have that level of like ease and liberation, and how do you talk to yourself, and how do you take care of yourself, and how do you really start being an authority in your life. Like I didn't realize how much, so much of my life was about me in relation to other people. Okay, what do you need me to be?
What do you
How
need
can
me to
I
be?
can be useful?
What is
What do you
my
need me to
function?
do? Okay, so then I'm
Yeah.
going to fix me because I'm not quite this, not quite this. So I'm going to fix me over here so that I can meet that need. And that's why I'm so excited about this next chapter, because it's taken so long to be like, I don't care what other people need. This is who I am. I can see myself clearly. I know my strengths and I know my limits. And before I didn't know my limits. So sometimes I would put myself and other people in situations where I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
This is not a good match.
And that's taking care. Like just even saying no.
Yeah.
At the bottom line, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this.
Yes.
It's taking care.
Yes. Will that answer your question?
It did.
I kind of got lost in the sauce.
Shout out to Ebony Janice. That's my sister.
Ebony Janice.
She and I have outbursts once a day, and I feel like that's a part of my self-care because our text messages and our DMs are so silly and random, but it's a moment of levity and a moment for me to just be ridiculous, because I'm very quirky, and I find Ebony Janice and I are both very quirky, and we have the most ridiculous sense of humor. But you need that. You need the community, because I find that I'm around women who are so excellent, but they also are so grounding, and they're so affirming, and they give me the space to take off the cape, because I am definitely a person who found almost all of my value in what I offered, like my use to people.
Yes.
Even I realized in a counseling session that even with my mom, I found my use with her, and my relationship with her. A few years ago, I started breaking through, finding myself as a function daughter, like not just in relationship. And my mom is not like that. She was not doing that. It was just the way that as a little girl, I started to interact with her. Like I'm mommy's helper, and then I'm mommy's co-parent, and then I'm parenting mommy, and my mom is like, girl. One time she told me that my brothers were not my sons, and I was like, and you are my daughter, and they are my sons. But I'm so much better than that was about 5 years ago. I'm beyond that now, so I'm not trying to take care of her anymore. But I appreciate that she gave me the space and said to me, I don't need anything from you. I just need you to be happy, and I need you to be at peace with yourself and be happy in your life. And you don't owe anyone anything but you. You owe yourself something. Like, what do you want to do for yourself? And that permission, like around, she didn't need to give me that permission, but she did need to say that to me.
And that you guys have that dynamic, because that's beautiful for someone that you're in love, deep loving relationship like that, to say, I don't need you to do that. Because a lot of women, we don't have that you have to be that person for yourself.
Yeah.
Because people are getting too much value out of you being the way that you currently are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like they're going to lose too much, and they don't necessarily want to lose that, So that's so beautiful to, to have that. And I want to say, when you said about your mom, I know you and your mom have a great relationship. I, also being in a lot of women's circles and being around other women, I learned how to love myself better and be in intimate relationship with other women. I didn't learn that from my family of origin necessarily, me and my mother. That's not the way that we engage. And so I had to be taught that. It's not automatic that you know how to do that if you didn't have that dynamic.
Yeah.
And so to allow yourself to be curious and tender enough that that's possible. And once I saw myself, once you have evidence that it's possible to just be who you are and people still think you're just like amazing, you can't go back. And so I found myself, I had built other friendships based on the model that I had, which was the model of me and my mother. So I didn't have the best friendship, like they weren't designed in the best way. And so once I was able to just have a different operating system, naturally you just engage with everyone so differently. So you can't ever go back, even if you wanted to. You can't go back. And that's how you start to build a life that's really based on care and safety, because you have that marker and it just starts spilling over into everything else that you do.
Yeah, I appreciate when we have community that is like our family. So even if it's not our family of origin, community that ushers us into new levels of ourselves and new aspects of ourselves, but also shows us something different that we can begin to dig into ourselves with. My friends are so different. We all come from so many different backgrounds and different family structures, but I'm pulling something from everybody and saying, this is useful to me right here. And I appreciate also that my friends often say the same things as my mom, just be. Like when you come into a room, any one of us, that's enough. You don't have to come in and you're functioning, especially outside of work, because we are functioning at such a high capacity in this world right now. And we are, like you said, we are consuming more than we're off-putting, and we are made to create. And so we have a bunch of things bottled up in us, but we also, we have a bunch of things bottled up in us. And I think if we get some of that stuff out, that it's like, I think in motion stays in motion. Yeah. So how did you arrive at the point of knowing I'm ready to launch my new work? Did you just go?
There's no other option. Here's the thing. I'm a slow learner. So like when I say I'm slow, so even me, like you said, after 2019, you're learning yourself or whatever. I'm slow. I could be learning the rest of my life and never launch anything. Real slow. And I love to learn. Sometimes you can get caught up in, you're just collecting information. You're just collecting all this wisdom. And it's like, but girl, what do we do? So it's just that push. I just felt when it's time, I'm not ready till I'm ready. And I've learned to not even try to pretend that I'm ready if I'm not ready. But I could feel that I'm ready for what this is. I don't know all the pieces. I don't know all the end results, but I'm clear enough. I have enough agency around who I am and how I work. And if there is a piece that I'm missing, because again, I like to have all the information, like, but what if I'm missing something and I'm not doing it right? Like, that's my toxic trait. You'll pivot. You'll figure it out. You'll course correct. I have so much evidence that things will keep, moving. So
are you good at pivoting? Are you a slow pivot? Or are you like an immediate pivot, or both?
I think both. I think it depends on the situation. I'm a slow pivot with people.
Okay.
I will hold on and grieve you for a long and figure out. I'm like, I can figure out how to make an inside child. Y'all needed to let each other go.
Yeah.
A long time ago. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm very, very slow with people. But when it comes to, I guess, like creative projects or idea, now that I know what I know and I'm just ready to, I embody it. So I'm just ready for what's happening on the inside to spill out on the outside. Like I don't have any imposter syndrome. Like I don't have any of that. I'm just ready. I know what's going on here. And basically the rest of the world, they don't know. They're like, oh, that's a girl from How to Get Married. And I'm like, there's so much. You know what I mean? And I'm just ready. And I just feel spirit just nudging me like, you're ready, and it's not even all about you at this point. I've built you up where you actually have the capacity and the resilience. I know I can trust you with this.
Yeah.
I know I can actually trust you with this. If something's off, I'm emotionally connected to myself. I never knew how to be emotionally connected with I had to learn how to do that. You know what I mean? So it's like all of those things are in place. What else am I supposed to do now? I gotta go.
You
now
might
I gotta go.
be the first woman I've ever heard say that you don't have imposter syndrome, and we need a master class ASAP. I'm so serious. But I'm starting to think, too, that if we're in spaces where that imposter syndrome is really roaring, we're in the wrong spaces.
That's what I meant when I said earlier, so many times we focus on, oh, something must be wrong with me. So
We keep on trying to fix ourselves.
a lot of times you're just in the wrong environment.
And we're in environments with people who also have imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
And
so
they are, yes. Oh.
Yeah, we're I've never had, I've definitely had doubts. I just always want to make sure, like, am I a good person? Am I, I felt like there were things I needed to fix about myself. But ever since I was little, I've always just had like big ideas and just kind of naturally been a big thinking person. And I just always felt like I wanted to do stuff in the world that helped a lot of people. I've just always felt that way. The tension and the grief that has happened for me is, if I've felt that way since I'm 5-6 years old and I'm now coming up on 47, it's like, well, when's that going to happen?
Yeah.
What you doing? Right. And it's not that all of that time before, nothing is a waste, even though sometimes you can get in your feelings and be like, if I would have known then what I know now. All that gets to be research. All of that, it all adds up. It all works.
Resolve can happen.
Yes.
My mom and I were talking about that one time not too long ago, how sometimes we think that trauma has to just be with us. And I'm like, no, trauma can be resolved. If the injury isn't ongoing, it can be resolved. You work through it and you close it off and you're on to the next one. Because if it stays with you forever, you'll always just be a partial part of yourself, because trauma is taking up a big part of you.
Yes. Yeah. You're making me think. That's so good. You're making me think. Ayanna, she came back with her show. They're doing like another version of the show. But she had said, basically, one woman, that she was committed to her suffering. Like, that was her commitment. She was committed to suffering. So it's like, so much of if you do have the unresolved, so much of it is, what is the story you're telling yourself?
That's
you're
right.
committed to this
and
suffering.
the energy you're putting into it, because you have to sustain it. You have to keep it alive. I often say this scripture about how, if God said that he cast the things you ask him for forgiveness from into the sea of forgetfulness, why are we still bringing those things up? It's the same thing with trauma. We pray about things that hurt us and that are hindering us. We pray about them, and we get up and bring them back with us when we pray, instead of leaving them on the altar. And I'm thinking about that in my life, because I'm trying to evolve, and evolution requires something to be left behind. Something that you love. If it's no longer useful to who you're becoming, you have to leave it behind. And that's what I'm hard to pivot on. Let's see, I'm hard to pivot on people too, but on parts of myself. I'll be trying to bring my 10-year-old self. I will tell you in a minute, I'm the same girl that I was in the hallway in 4th grade when I told those girls. They asked me, did I know Whitney Houston? Because Whitney Houston was just coming out with her friend singer. I was like, of course I do. I did not. But that personality, I still have like that audacious personality right now. But like, my spirit is so much bigger than my courage level about, being out there. But I guess the parting thought that I want to leave with is, what is non-negotiable for you? And this is in the thread of taking care of yourself.
That belongs to myself. That freedom. Yeah. That belongs to myself.
And from that, so much comes from that, because I remember when I was a teenager and I would be dating different guys, and I always said to myself, they would say there were a lot of things I couldn't do, because I don't even know if my mom knew I was dating as a teenager, but I wasn't allowed to date. So there were a lot of things that I wasn't able to do. And so they would say, you just want to be in control. And I say, I don't need to be in control of you, but I am in control of me. And if that controls the situation, then I'm in control.
Yes.
I don't need to be in control.
Yes.
Yes, teenage Kaitra.
Yes.
But that reminds me of that, that I belong to myself, because then you choose yourself first. And that's not being selfish. I don't think we choose ourselves enough, and it causes us not to be honest, and it causes us to have resentments, which we also carry like traumas. We carry unforgiveness and all this stuff, and a lot of things that we haven't offloaded is because we haven't dealt with what our part was in it.
That's right.
And if you belong to yourself, you think at first thought, what is this going to mean for me? Do I want to go? It doesn't matter who all is over there. Do I want to go? I don't want to go. I want to be invited, but I want you to know I'm not coming. But that I don't think I would have thought of that as my non-negotiable. But that is it. That I don't apologize for my no.
Yeah.
I'm a quick no.
Yeah.
I'm a slow yes. When I tell you, you better campaign to get me to yes. Because so often we say yes to things that we don't mean yes to.
We're saying it out of obligation. We're saying it out of people pleasing. Again, so much of my good life was based on me trying to manage other people's expectations of me. I wanted them to be pleased with me.
Yeah.
And life is too short. And so that's why I feel that if I can belong to myself, that affects every decision. And it also makes me a better friend, a better partner, a better leader, a better creative, because then you belong to yourself. I don't need to extract anything from you to get something. You know what I mean? Like you get to be whole, I get to be whole, and we get to come together.
Oh, I love that. You get to be whole and I get to be whole, because people often think that the exchange requires you to give a little bit of yourself to me, and not always me give something to you, but people are, just like you said, we're taking in a lot, but we're not putting out a lot. It's the same thing. We're giving out a lot. We're not infilling with enough, which is why I was talking about in the beginning about replenishing, because the world is taking a lot from Black women.
Yes.
And it's requiring and it's asking a lot and it's expecting a lot.
Yes.
If they can't get it by asking us, they take it. And so I definitely wanted my conversations here to be about saying to Black women, you belong to yourself, like you just said.
You belong to yourself.
And you don't owe anybody yourself.
And to your point of the world being so tough and taking so much, and just there's so much just like lovelessness. Like, right? Not everyone can move overseas. Not everyone can take a year residency. That's why I'm so big on the idea of, even if we're within a system, there are still ways we can create our own worlds within that system. It doesn't mean bad stuff isn't going on. It doesn't mean it's not trying to pull on us, but it is actually possible. World building is a real thing. It's not an abstract thing. It's a real thing where, to your point, how you were saying when you decided you moved down here, you're doing whatever, you built out a world for yourself. You know what I mean? And so I think I'm still finding, language and structure around it, but I feel like everything I've done is really world building, and that's not a skill set that everyone knows is possible. But everything is made that way. All the stuff that's going wrong, that's destructive, they built out a world to make it the way it is. Yeah. So we can. That's how I feel. I
love that. Thank you so much for joining me today,
Thank you for having me.
Follow me on all social media platforms. I'm just Catrice Minds. And also check out my website of sistren.com, and I'll see you next time.